What's good, Raptor fans? Okay, so I screwed up a little bit here in terms of starting this live. Supposed to start at 12:25. Realized at 12:33 that it was not 12:35. My bad. The Toronto Raptors win again. And if you're keeping count, over the last 2 months, the Raptors have been the seventh best team in the Eastern Conference. They are actually playing pretty good basketball. Since January 13th, they're one of the better defenses in the NBA. They've been playing locked in defense, and I think a large part of that is Scottie Barnes. Tonight, the Raptors misplanned the tank. Let's just put it that way. Now, in the previous game, a very pissed off Walker Kessler dominated and played with great aggression against the Toronto Raptors. And tonight, the Raptors thought, how can we accentuate the impact of a Walker Kessler? I don't know. I guess we could just hold out our only 7-foot defensive center and we can just let Walker Kessler have more free roam in the paint. Instead, it completely backfires because not only do the Utah Jazz hold out Lauri Markkanen in the second half, despite getting fined for pretty much doing exactly that, uh, they do lip service to the NBA's fine. They play Lauri Markkanen, play him 19 minutes. He scores 16 points. He looked very, very good. And, fresh off of $100,000 fine, they list Walker Kessler as active. He started every single game he's played this year. They're obviously looking to trade him this offseason. And if you're expecting him to come in and dominate the Raptors in the paint, it just never happened because Walker Kessler did not play in this game. And the Toronto Raptors, despite, it being a very close game in the third quarter, they decide to play Scottie Barnes and Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett in the fourth quarter to start the fourth quarter. And it's just too much. The Jazz completely flatline, don't know how to score for like 7 minutes. The Raptors go on a huge run. And this is something, if you've watched any Jazz games this year, this is a consistent hallmark of Jazz basketball this year. They will play relatively even until about the fourth quarter, and then they just completely collapse. You're noticing certain trends across the NBA. There's certain teams that are what I consider three-quarter teams or two-quarter teams. There's certain teams that are really competitive in the first half, and then somewhere in the third quarter, they just let the foot off the gas. And that's a great question, man. I mean, look, I was very pissed off in the last game. You'll notice I have none of that energy in today's game because there is something productive to be gleaned from this. So there's a few things that we're going to do in this live. Number one, we will take your calls. So if you have some calls, definitely let's discuss if you have anything to say about this game. Number two, we're going to discuss some Masai Ujiri quotes about Scottie Barnes and why they're building around him. And I don't think this has been very widely discussed, but yes, we will definitely talk about that. The third thing that we will do is we'll talk about this game. Naturally, we'll talk about this game and what can be taken away from it, and maybe attempt to try and explain what the Raptors are even doing right now as they completely get out tanked by every team that they face. Right? Okay, cool. So let's start with this game. I think there's some positives in this game, and then there's some negatives in this game too. Let's talk about both. So positive, let's talk about the positives, man. Positive number one, I think Orlando Robinson is turning into a serviceable third string center. That's not something the Raptors have always had. In fact, I'm inclined to say I don't think that's something the Raptors have really ever had. A competent third string center. What does that even look like in Raptorland? I'm thinking back, and usually it's like Khem Birch. Like it's usually overpriced and not very good. Orlando Robinson is 24 years old, and he is consistently sort of filling up the box score in like 4 different ways: points, rebounds, assists, and blocks. Now, we all know that every single center gets a lot of assists in Darko's system, but, again, to do so consistently, playmaking, this seems to be a real prerequisite for Darko's system is bigs who can play make, which is why I'm starting to cool on my thoughts about Khaman Malawach and starting to think maybe the Raptors would prefer Derek Queen, because again, the Darko system requires this type of player, this player who can make decisions in the middle of the floor, be a big, can reverse, set some screens. I think maybe the Raptors are looking at their roster. They're looking at how expensive it is at the top, and they're thinking, can we just start holding auditions right now for roster spots 10 through 16, 10 through 17? Because we don't think that we generally have the money to go out and get players on, mid-level, biannual exception, et cetera, type of players to fill those roster spots. It might actually be beneficial to us to, I don't know, be able to extend a guy who's already in our system, like an AJ Lawson or Orlando Robinson. We make a sort of wink, wink deal with them and say, hey, we give you an open tryout. If it works out, you come on for a 2-year contract with a partial guarantee. And that way we have some assurances that we have competent NBA players at the end of our roster. Now, it's debatable how competent you think these players are, specifically Colin Castleton, who got the start tonight and was fairly decent, even hit a three. That was pretty cool. Played some minutes with Orlando Robinson in a three, in a 4-5 combination where I think the Raptors just sort of outsized the Utah Jazz, which is kind of weird to say when you think about how big the Utah Jazz can be at times. At times they've played Filipowski plus Markkanen plus Kessler. Like, they're a huge team and they take a lot of threes. And tonight the Raptors just felt bigger than them. They out rebounded them across the board. They had more offensive rebounds than them. So I think that, yeah, I think you can take something away from those bigs, right? That either Castleton or Orlando Robinson, maybe one, maybe both, could hang on as a third string big on your roster. The other player who could potentially hang on as a minimum contract is the guy who has, I want to say, 78 points in the last 3 games, and that's AJ Lawson. AJ Lawson, the fact that I found out today, broke the record for the most you're doing too much, please stop. Like, literally, you are like this close to getting banned. Yo, hi, yo, shut the fuck up. Yeah, you're done. Fuck the hell off. Yeah, banned. Don't troll, bro. It's 12:48 in the morning. We ain't got no patience for this. Come on. Come on now. Okay. Fuck out of here. Okay. Jeez. All right. So you got Chris Boucher probably not coming back, right? Chris Boucher will probably get $5-6 million somewhere else. Now, if he doesn't get $5-6 million somewhere else, then great. That's a great player to have, okay, on your roster. So you could potentially have this depth, serviceable depth at the back end, and then you can play around with it. And then who knows? And these guys are young. AJ Lawson is young. Uh, Orlando Robinson is young. Colin Castleton is young. These are not like 30-year-olds and 28-year-olds, right? These are guys in their early 20s. I mean, that's being generous. They're 24, 25, but they're still guys who have a chance, and you're getting a firsthand look at them in your system. And I think AJ has looked great. I think Jared Roden has looked very good in spurts. And so, yeah, there's a very, very basic way to think about this, which is to say, well, we got Jakobi and we got Grady and we got Ochai and we got RJ. And, okay, but what if one of these players allows you to make a consolidation move where you can trade 2 of those players for a big, and now you just get to slot up, right? I mean, that's what the Raptors did. I mean, some people forget that all-star caliber player named Norman Powell right now was the 11th or 12th guy in the rotation very often for Nick Nurse when they were winning a championship. So this is something that the Raptors always used to have, which is they used to have like this talent in that 10, 11, 12 spot of their roster that could step up. And quite frankly, under Nick Nurse, specifically under Nick Nurse, that talent was completely depleted. Number one, and they just couldn't find those players. Number two, they weren't playing those players. So now you're playing the players, you're figuring out who they are, you're figuring out who they are when they really don't have a lot to play for. And, it's backfiring spectacularly because the Raptors are winning games because these guys are frankly just too good to play against, the Johnny Juzangs of the world. But nevertheless, let's just call that a positive. I think positive number 2, you can say Jamal Shed is awesome, right? Like, I love Jamal Shed. And it feels like last live I said something really stupid, and I would like to correct that. I said that I think Emmanuel Quickly is the fourth best passer on this team, and I just want to correct that because that's absolutely ridiculous to say that, because obviously Scottie is the best passer on this team, and obviously you can make a case that Brandon Ingram is the second best passer on this team. And then I said, well, if RJ is the third best passer on this team, that means Emmanuel Quickly is the fourth best passer on this team. And I think I just completely had a brain fart where I forgot, oh yeah, there's a number 23 who plays for the Toronto Raptors named Jamal Shed, and he's a friggin' fantastic passer himself. And I think that he has brought a stability to that backup point guard spot and a lot of ball pressure and tenacity. And when you think about what you really need out of a point guard, you need a tone setter, you need a mature communicator. Communication is so underrated for a point guard, and especially a young point guard. And I just think that Jamal has been a revelation. I think I had a conversation with Jordan. Some of y'all, follow us on PC. Jordan and I are cool. And, Jamal's from Jordan's neck of the woods. So he's followed him a lot, in Houston. And he said, don't be surprised if Jamal Shed is out of the league, in a couple years. And I was very high on Jamal, but when I heard Jordan say that, I was like, let me be a little bit more skeptical because he's a player on my team. I love the guy, and maybe my whole bias of him picking up the trash after his that entire thing that happened this offseason and being the winningest player in college basketball, like all these things are sort of tainting my view, and maybe I'm seeing things that aren't there. But no, now we're really seeing it. He looks like a real rotation player in the NBA, and I feel like if he was on the Memphis Grizzlies, I feel like this is a player who should be pushing for minutes. And it's a real remarkable story of how much better he's gotten since the season started. And he's taking those threes, and he made 3 of them tonight. The idea of Jamal Shed going 3 for 4 from 3 just a couple of months ago would seem so absurd. And I think that it is it is a testament to his hard work, his adaptability, and also the Raptors coaching staff that he has been able to polish himself this much. Pause. Uh, yeah, he has been able to, polish up his game this much. So I just think that Jamal Shed is a huge positive if you want to talk about positives. Positive number 3, I think we can talk about the chemistry between BBQ. They combined for 57 points tonight. And I think Emmanuel Quickly and Scottie Barnes are figuring each other out. Scottie had probably the most bursty game I've seen from him in over a month. And I think this is going to tie very well into one of my negatives. Okay. So I do not like Scottie being a 4. I really hate it, actually. Uh, Vehemently despise this idea of taking the ball out of his hands and having him set screens for Emmanuel Quickly. Now, I understand this is where we are in the season, but I don't think this is where we're going. And I think if this team is going to be successful, the ball is going to be in Brandon Ingram's hands and Scottie's hands, and that Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett are going to take more of an off-ball role. Now, it helps that they develop on-ball tendencies and reps and polish up their skills in that regard, because at some point they're going to need to anchor a second unit or there's going to be injuries. But the best version of this team, the ball is not going through Emmanuel Quickly 25 possessions a game. That's just not how it's going to work. So I'm a little bit confused by that because I don't see the point. And all of these earlier on in the season, you'll notice that Scottie had a whole bunch of like these 9 assists, 10 assists, 12 assists type of games. And he's had another type of game when Emmanuel Quickly plays, which is like the 2 to 3 assist games. And I really think it's an oscillation between 3 players that he basically mimics those 3 players, right? And I can tell you that he's most successful, at least from a shooting percentage, win share, box plus minus perspective, in one role. But I don't really care about the success rates at this point. I'm more or less concerned about the process. So he's had a lot of, let's call it, Magic Giannis adjacent games where the usage is way up. He's driving the offense a lot more. He's been forced to make decisions a lot more. Okay, that's one type of game. Then he's had a second type of game, which is like let's call it the Pippen adjacent games, where he's more of a point forward. Those are the games where he usually gets about 20 points, 5 assists, 8 rebounds, you know? And then he's had Draymond adjacent games, right? And those have been pretty dominant games as well. And I think tonight is more of a Draymond adjacent game, right? Probably more of a scoring punch than Draymond usually packs. You know, in 24 minutes, he managed to score 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. He takes 16 shots. He was super aggressive looking for his shot. He was great just sort of flying downhill. Like he figured it out very early that there was no paint protection for the Jazz. And so, boom, paint is open. I'm just going for it, going for it, going for it. But overall, like I don't need to see Scottie Barnes doing this. I know he can do this. I need to see him operating the pick and roll. I need to see him, taking 7, 8 threes a game. And tonight, he kind of settled back into that role that he had as a rookie. And I don't necessarily even need to see that. So I'm not trying to. Rob, I told you on X, but got banned. Got banned from what? Huh? You got banned on X? Why'd you get banned on X? The good thing about Scottie is that he morphs his game. I don't I get that, but at the same time, like I know what I need to see from this guy, and I didn't see enough of that. At least I have not been seeing enough of that lately. And it's making me really curious about how the Raptors see him. So I think that next segment where we look at what Masai Ujiri said about him, that's going to be really telling. Oh, got banned. Oh, because I blocked you on X because you kept comparing him to Draymond Green. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get that. That's not what I'm saying. Like you and I are not saying the same thing. You're comparing him to Draymond Green. I'm saying he's playing the Draymond role. Like he's not at all like he's not Draymond Green. Like if you can't see that, like you're just blind as fuck. Okay. Uh, I ended up splitting my attention between 3 games today, which is really cool, and that's also a reason why this live is a little bit delayed because I had to catch up on the Raptors stuff, and believe me, if you thought that I was gonna devote my Friday night to the Jazz Raptors, like, you're insane. No, there were 3 games on the docket tonight for me. Number 1, obviously, was the Utah Jazz and the Toronto Raptors, and I watched every minute of this game. Number 2 was Duke, North Carolina, because I was very curious to watch 2 players who could be on the Raptors' radar, and a third that, cheering from the bench, who I hope is on the Raptors' radar in Cooper Flag. So that was very cool. Come on, Malawach does foul out. It was a crazy ending to Duke, North Carolina, where Duke was up huge at the half and in the third, and then boom, we got a massive comeback from North Carolina, and it falls just short. It falls just short. Uh, it was a Khaman Malawach foul that put them at the line, and unfortunately, it was one miss, and then the second was a make at the line, and the North Carolina player had a lane violation. So that was really tough. And then, of course, I was watching the Lakers and the Denver Nuggets and thinking that we were going to see Luka versus Nikola Jokic. We did not see that. And what was interesting was we saw the Nuggets nearly lose to LeBronless, Doncicless Lakers, which was very interesting as well. So both those games were infinitely more interesting than the Raptors versus the Jazz. But nevertheless, this is a Raptors postgame show, so we will talk about that. Okay. So yeah, anyways, so long story short, I genuinely find myself not impressed with these types of Scottie Barnes games, not because they're not effective or good or they don't look good. They're great. They look great. It's just I don't have any doubts that he can do this stuff. So I'm not all that impressed that he can. And this is the kind of stuff that I feel like people don't really understand about Scottie is that when he wants to do this, when he wants to put up like 25, 10, and 5, he can do that whenever he wants. The difference earlier in the season was can you do it while attempting 7 or 8 pull-up threes a game, while handling point guard duties, while initiating like 17, 18 pick and rolls a game? Like that to me is the big challenge. Can you do it self-generated? right? Like, I don't need to see Scottie Barnes setting a screen for RJ Barrett, having Johnny Juzang or Bryce Sensabaugh miscommunicate that with no big inside, and Scottie Barnes rolls right to the basket as RJ Barrett or Emmanuel quickly flip it right over the defense. Like, what am I confused about here? That Scottie can make open layups? Yeah, I know Scottie can make open layups. You know, like, what did Brian and I say? We were talking about, Scotty last year in that interview. We said Scotty gets easy ones, right? So the the question isn't whether he can get more easy ones against, shitty competition. That's great. Like, we know that he can get easy ones. The question is, can he get 12 to 15 points per game consistently on good efficiency in the half court? You know, which is why earlier in the season when we were seeing more of that mid-range package, and it's so interesting how my views on Scotty are so counter, they run so counter to everybody else's. Like, Matt Bonner's just like at the halftime show, he's like, "Oh, Scotty needs to learn how to post up and do a jump hook." And Alvin Williams like he needs to get into the paint and body these guys. There's no like these guys are so linear in their thinking. It's so basic. Like, I would love to do an IQ test for them. Like, it's just they have such like bird brain thoughts. And I really hope that the Raptors internally have greater higher ambitions for Scotty than to use him this way, right? And unfortunately, sometimes the recency bias of what have you done for me lately, you would almost have liked to see this season go inverted for him, right? Where you start out the season, you give him the big numbers playing this role, and then as you go forward, you start to expand the three-point shooting. And whereas right now, it just almost feels like they quit on him, or he quit on it, or they quit on each other. Because it's like you start out the season and you start out with this very ambitious hope of, and you're losing games, right? You're losing games against great competition. And Scotty's taking like 7 threes, 8 threes, 10 threes, and everyone's losing their mind. And it's just like now you're facing these really bad teams. What better opportunity to do that shit? And now you're doing the exact opposite. So it's like shit. You lose both situations because like if you could actually get him back into shooting like 6 for 22 or some shit, you might actually lose some of these games. But now he's just being this lockdown defender who's rolling to the basket and having a lot of offense generated for him. And that's just like that's leaning right into his most base instincts, and I need Scotty to lean away from his base instincts. So that's just a little bit disappointing, but I have to say that it was encouraging overall to see how bursty he was tonight. Like it just like how explosive he felt going to the basket, and overall the Raptors absolutely dominate in the paint. They win the paint battle by 22 points, 64 to 42. This is one of the highest volume three-point shooting teams in the league. They hold them to only 38 attempts. They average north of 43. So, 42%, they didn't do a great job guarding them from the three late or early in the game. And it felt like the Jazz were pretty much going to live or die by threes tonight. The Raptors did not live or die by threes, but they hit a respectable amount, almost 38%. But in the paint, they were super effective. They got second chance opportunities on their 10 rebounds. I think overall they won the turnover margin. They led by as many as 15. This game was never really in doubt. If we look at the win probability, the Raptors pretty much won. They were winning this game handily for about 43 minutes. 43 to 44 minutes of this game, it was pretty much all Raptors. And on the fourth, it was completely all Raptors, like the whole way through. So you have this BBQ lineup, they go out, you put in the bench with Garrett Temple, who was very good tonight. I think overall Garrett Temple was impressive defensively, organizing the troops. Jamal Shed, Colin Castleton. You put this lineup in, AJ Lawson, and you got this 8-point lead, 9-point lead, and you're just like, okay, let's see if they can blow it. And the Jazz, of course, they pull their starters. So it was just your worst versus their worst, and your worst is just way better than their worst. So I think it's just what it looked like tonight. Okay, let's get out of here and let's go to a few clips a few select clips of this game. Not a lot this game, but overall, like, really just loved Scottie's defense. Look at this effort defensively. Like, this is just nuts. Okay. Walls up, second effort, doesn't get it. Third effort, doesn't get it. Fourth effort, gets it. Fifth effort, dude, that's nuts. And then draws the foul. Like, that is just tremendous pursuit of the basketball. I've often said that the litmus test for Scottie is, you know, uh, the rebounds. That's a really, really good test for how dialed in he is. He's such a great athlete that when he has 3 or 4 rebounds, you can just tell he's sort of sleepwalking through the game. There's no reason that Scottie can ever they should ever have 3 or 4 rebounds in a game. So, yeah, like, I think when he's healthy and he's right and he's engaged and he's trying to win a game, it's 10 to 12 rebounds every single time. So, yes, and he gets 10 tonight in 24 minutes. Let's just think about what Scottie would do with a full 37 or 38 minutes in this kind of game. I don't know. Probably like this would be a 35 and 14 game or something like that. Anyways, here you're going to see great defense from RJ Barrett. Now, after the game, Jamal Shed said that we get our Scottie sets the tone for us defensively. Darko Rajakovic had a very, very similar quote the other day where he said, Scottie Barnes is my lead assistant coach. So I do think that as much as you can dance around why the Raptors are so good defensively lately, I think it's a pretty obvious answer. Scottie has been freaking locked in defensively. So, okay, look at the defense here by RJ Barrett. Just great. Swipes this away from Cody Martin. And this is just another example of just wonderful playmaking from RJ Barrett. Just great. And then here comes AJ Lawson skying. Very nice. Great play. Awesome. Now, again, we've seen Scottie looking like he didn't have a lot of burst. And early in the season, he was shooting around 77 to 78% around the rim. And that was great. And then suddenly he just started missing a whole bunch and it kept going like that. And then people started being like, why is Scottie missing around the rim? He just had no burst. Tonight, he had a lot of burst. A lot of burst here. Sort of like this double clutch here. There was one where I think he went to the basket and missed it, but I thought he was fouled. And here, the aforementioned play where Scottie sets this little up, slips it, and then boom, right? They just miscommunicate that, and everything was fast and everything was with force. And another example of that would be this play right here, right? Now, far too many times over the last couple of weeks, I've just said he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have burst. He's not getting separation. And you can say part of this is you're playing the Utah Jazz and there's no center inside. I think just from my eye, he just moved a lot better tonight. Look at this play right here. Boom. That acceleration on that first step just has not been there for a few weeks now for him. And yes, I agree. He was getting hacked a lot. Okay. So we have checked that out. Now, let's check this out. And this was a couple of weeks ago, but I feel like I didn't hear this talked about, and I certainly didn't talk about it. And this might be because y'all might have talked about it, but I was doing pen dance stuff. So Masai Ujiri sat down for an exclusive on the record with the Toronto Star, and he got deeper into it. So here he was talking about the Philadelphia 76ers. I said on how championships teams are built in Philadelphia, quote, Joel Embiid and who was the second guy? And they tried and tried and tried. I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying this is what happened. OKC, Shea, Chet, Jalen, and now they have that core in Boston, Tatum and Brown. Think of how many players for how many years have rotated around these guys. Everyone has gone there, signed there, left there, come back, gone there. Al Horford, Kyrie Irving, Terry Rozier, and they have tried all kinds of stuff. And then it works with those two players eventually. On how long rebuilding timeline has to be, he says, quote, so yeah, if we get that second player and one of your guys grows into being that guy, And that's how long it's going to last. I'm not going to sit here and lie to people or tell them it's going to last 5 years because I want every shot or every chance at it. I'm going to tell you exactly what the reality is. As soon as we get those two phenomenal, incredible players, and we already have one in Scottie Barnes, or two and a half, or three of them, whatever it takes. End quote. On the core of this team, quote, Scottie is the main core of this team. I think you build around him because of the winning mentality, because of the winning instincts he has. Yeah, he's not completely a shot maker now, that will develop. But I think he's a championship contending competitor now. He understands the game well enough where this is the rebound to get, this is the steal to get, sometimes the right pass to make when he's not over ambitious or maybe playing with younger players or people with not the caliber of where his mind is going at the time. And he does make mistakes now. I think Jakob is a championship center if he's playing with incredible players. If Jakob went to any of this contending teams, you've raised the level. He fits with any team. And that's why we brought him, because he's also in rebuilding. He fits also in rebuilding. He's a great passer, he's a great team guy, unselfish, and has the right attitude towards winning. On the changing league, quote, I'll say this for the older players, the LeBron James, the Kevin Durant's, the Jimmy Butlers, and the Steph Currys. All three of you go on a team that's done. That's not happening anymore because nobody is scared of that anymore. Yeah, nobody. And by the way, if you're doing that, that means those three guys are making 50 million. 50 million if you're paying a 36-year-old that, with the LeBron James, the Steph Currys, those guys, they've earned it. They are good enough. But what is going to happen now is some of these older guys have to take less money and go and play on younger teams. That has to be the next trend because teams are not going to take that risk of paying 37, 38-year-olds anymore. Okay, on whether losing will be corrosive to the group, quote, I think losing will never be corrosive in this. It's not going to be part of this organization. You play sports to win, and there are sometimes organizations just go through cycles where you're not going to win every day in sports. You're not going to win every time. On the confidence in himself and his team, quote, I'm not like an overconfident person in where I would say I don't address some of the things that we've done wrong or you don't learn from them. Okay, I just want to interject here. The Jakob Poeltl trade was a nightmare, and I've never heard him address that. So, cap. Okay, continuing. I'm not like that at all. I don't have the arrogance in that way. But I know the people that work with me, Bobby, Dan, Teresa, before she left for the WNBA's Toronto Tempo, these are incredibly smart people. Everybody that I hired is smarter than me. And I know that smart people make you rise. And adversity in sports, tough times in sports is going to come. This is our job. This is why we get paid to do this. Okay. On worrying about his job, quote, there's never a point where I worry about this job. If you do that, then I don't think you do it. I don't think you do it that well. I think that because if I don't have this job, I swear to you guys, I'll have a better job. And that better job might not even be a job, is what I'm saying to you. I'm lucky. I'm a happy person. Even if I don't have this, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy with Giants of Africa. I'm happy with everything that I do. I'm really happy. So you can never go into this worried about, are you going to have a job? I have to leave this place just like I left Denver. I'm going to leave this place in the best position that it has ever been in. I'm not going to leave this place and they're not going to look back and say, oh man, look at what the Masai and these guys did. Or I'll leave this place in a position where you have unbelievable people to take it over. On winning another title, quote, in the NBA, since we won it, a different team has won it every year. So why do I even have any doubt that I cannot win it next year or the year after or the year after that? Oh man. Okay. Yeah. And there's an entire thing about, uh, on his ability to coach a contending team that you can certainly go check out. It is on the Toronto Star YouTube. Okay. So reacting to all of that, so many thoughts. I mean, first of all, I understand this is a front facing position and it is at least in part going to be a position which is politically influenced. Like he's going to have to say certain things that are good for ticket holders. And, he's not just going to throw his team under the bus. And, if they have made a mistake on, one of their players, even if that player is Scottie Barnes, I certainly don't think that they're going to say that publicly. That would be stupid. But in terms of how this team has done, I think they've done better than most. I think their hires have been great. I think the only complaint you could probably have right now is they're maybe half-assing this a little bit, and they may end up, in the play-in by default. But, you know, I think you can look at this and you can say if this Brandon Ingram and Scottie Barnes pairing works out, the team has done a great job of sort of rebuilding on the fly. You know, I think they've recovered really well. They've gotten a lot younger. They hit on their draft picks. They're hitting on development. They seem to have found, viable pieces, at least with Orlando Robinson and AJ Lawson out of nowhere, right? Just completely out of nowhere. Like, let's be honest. Last year, you traded a first round pick to get Ochai Agbaji at the trade deadline. This year, you've gotten AJ Lawson for free. And I would argue AJ Lawson this year has been so much better than Ochai Agbaji or Jordan Nwora last year. Okay. Now, granted, it's a very small sample size. It's against a lot of bad teams. We don't know what AJ Lawson is going to look like against good teams, but he's not the first guy in the world to come out of the G League and just find a footing in the NBA. Okay. And, if he sticks, this is great. It's great. Right. This is scary as hell. Okay. We've got a caller, Stevo. Stevo, what's up? Also, we've got a super chat here from Noble Venom. I don't understand the idea of getting a big lead and trying to sell it at the end. They have to commit to a decision. I get that. Yeah, Steve-O, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, you're chopping in and out. Sorry. It's very, very disruptive. It's like da, 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 da. Yeah. I don't know if you're having internet issues. No, it isn't. Sorry, Steve-O. This happened last time too. Yeah. Talk to you later, man. Bye. I'm not crazy, right? Y'all can confirm that that sounded really jagged as hell. Can anyone else confirm that in the chat? There we go. Okay, cool. All right. So we are 37 minutes into this. These lives have been getting a little bit shorter and a little bit shorter. I do want to say that I've been working a little bit more on the scouting side of things in general, and I am enjoying it, and I'm seeing a lot of positive players between 5 and 10 that are making me feel a little less panicky about the Raptors' position in this draft. Now, obviously, I have gotten higher and higher on Cooper Flag as the season has gone on. However, I have gotten lower and lower on the gap between player 3 and player 10. So that's where I'm at right now. Whereas we walked into this season, and I will remind you that 4 months ago, there were some real people that consider themselves draft analysts that were comparing Cooper Flag to Yegor Demon and wondering if Yegor Demon would in fact be the number 1 overall pick. I'm not crazy, right? Y'all remember those people? Okay. So I don't believe I ever got higher than number 3 or number 4 on Yegor Demon, and I laughed off this idea that he would ever push Cooper Flag or that anyone would push Cooper Flag in this draft, whether that be Ace Bailey, which I completely rejected, Dylan Harper, which I rejected, but did not completely reject, but I rejected it. I said, if there's a second player in this draft, it's going to be Dylan Harper. And sometimes you just lock in early and you don't change your mind too much. Okay. So going into this season, it was Cooper Flag as a definitive number 1, Dylan Harper as a definitive number 2. I think at some point I was like, okay, maybe he's closer to Ace Bailey, but I think I've been pretty consistent with him as the number 2 player in this draft. I think where it falls off majorly is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there are some players that have kind of oscillated between 10 and 3, 10 and 4. Players like Kasparis Yakuchonis, players like Khaman Malawach, players like VJ Edgecombe. So at this point, if I had to guess, I'm going to assume that VJ is probably going to be top 5. I'm going to guess that Khaman is going to probably be closer to 5 than 10. And I'm going to guess that even though he's been really tailing off lately in terms of efficiency and output, and Rutgers has just not had a great season, I'm going to guess that the shot making chops of Ace Bailey are still going to leave him top 5. But how I feel about player number 4 versus player number 9, I don't think that gap is super significant. Now, obviously, if I had a choice, I pick 4th over 9th, but I don't think that there's a class of difference. Okay, Steve, we're going to try one more time to let you on, and if the choppiness continues, we're just going to have to end it. Okay, so we got you on. What's up?
Hey, um,
Yep, still choppy. Yeah. So sorry. Still very, very choppy. I don't understand why that's happening to you. To be completely frank, I don't know if it's internet. I've never had that happen with anybody else on this app. So yeah, I'm sorry, but it's happened like 3 straight times with you. So there's just a very good chance that that's your internet or something's happened. I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I mean and I mean that's the thing, right? There are players in that 13, 12, 14 range that are probably as close to player 8 as player 8 is to number 4. So, again, we said it last year that not all drafts are created equal, and if you recall last year, I was actually quite bullish on the 2024 draft because I said, "Look, maybe you don't have that sort of top end superstar talent, but I really believe," and if you wanna go back, you wanna say I'm lying, go back and listen to the draft coverage last year. I said, "I think that somewhere between 10 and 40, there's like a lot of role players that can be had." And that's what we saw. We saw it with, Deron Holmes, unfortunately got injured, but we saw that with and unfortunately there was another, 2 injuries that happened with Nikola Topic, and also we had Devin Carter get injured, and also, we had a lot of injuries. Okay, let's just be honest. We had a lot of injuries. Uh Also Jared McCain, but those are all really good building block type of players. We've had Tristan Da Silva, Kalel Ware, Eve Misi, Jacoby Walter, depending on how you feel about Jonathan Mobo. We've had guys like Kyle Filipowski. There's been so many of these players that have popped. And I mean, you can also talk about those mid lottery, high lottery guys like Matas Buzelis, Stefan Castle, right? Zach Eady, Donovan Clingan. Like there's so many. So even if, okay, fine, Zachary Risachet and Alex Sarr are not going to live up to the billing as a 1-2, it doesn't matter because players 4, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, are all going to be really solid players and pros. And we're seeing even value being extracted into the undrafted heap with Jamison Battle, and we're seeing value at 45 with Jamal Shed, and we're seeing value, I think we're seeing value at 57 with Ulrich Shamshi. So, man, there's a lot of really serviceable pros in that draft, and that's what you want. And the Raptors found 5 really good young players in that draft, and they walked in seemingly with doomsday because they lost their pick, and they lost that Rob Dillingham. I didn't even talk about Terrence Shannon. Terrence Shannon's been awesome, awesome. You know, there's so many players in that draft that when we think back, we're like, were there like 38 to 40 NBA players in this draft? Really go back and think about it. There's like 38 to 40 legit NBA players that came out of that draft, and the Raptors have gotten at least 4 of them. That's solid. That's solid. So, what if we think about this draft in a very similar way, where we say, okay, fine, there's Cooper Flag, and then there's Dylan Harper, and then there's like 15 players that are separated by like 15%. Could that be true? Could that be true? How big is the gap between VJ Edgecombe and Khaman Malawach versus Derek Queen, Colin Murray Boyles, Asa Noel, and Kasparis Yakachonis? You're really splitting hairs at this point, aren't you? You really are. You really are. So maybe the Raptors have settled into a similar evaluation of this draft where they've said, okay, sure, we would love to pick top four. Can't control that right now. We're not going to go out of our way to try and game the system. Obviously, we would love the number one overall pick or the number two pick. But unfortunately, because of the flattened lottery odds, we can't really move our odds too much there. So, what we can do is we can try to move up to five. And then the inevitability of five is that you probably stay at five or move down to six, or we can stay at seven. And then we still have the chance to move up to four, three, two, or one, but we also have a diminished chance of moving down past eight. So I think you could look at it that way and just say the Raptors probably just don't care enough as much about this as fans do. And we will see, we will see if this backfires. But maybe they're just not as high on the players who are currently projected to go 3, 4, 5, and 6 as everybody else. Is that fair? And it's comments like this that maybe the Raptors agree with this. That maybe the Raptors know the teams that are picking in that area are not interested in Colin Murray Boyles, and maybe they think we love Colin Murray Boyles. We pick Colin Murray Boyles fifth, so maybe it's a Scottie Barnes situation. You know what I mean? Colin Murray Boyles and Scottie Barnes actually have a lot in common. I'm not saying they're similar in terms of athletes and stuff, but damn, Colin Murray Boyles would really fit in, wouldn't he? I've been high on this guy since last year, like super, super high on him. You know, it's like certain players where you're just like, shit, like he really can't fail. Like I don't think Colin Murray Boyles can fail in the NBA. There's certain players you feel that way about, and he's one of those players. So yeah, I think maybe if you're sitting here, like saying like, man, the gap between 5 and 7 is going to be so drastic. I just don't know if the Raptors agree. I don't think the Raptors agree with that. And yeah, I'm really high on the mid lottery in this draft. I'm really, really high on the, like, from what I've seen, where I would love picks in this draft. Let me see. 6 to 9 would just be great. I really like that area of this draft. And I really like 14 to 22. I really like 14 to 22. So maybe, just maybe, 14 to 22 is something you can trade into. You know, maybe. Maybe you can trade that Portland pick plus something. Maybe something you don't want to keep, maybe something expensive, maybe, a young player, and then you can jump into that area of the draft. I think it really sucks that the Raptors don't have a second pick in this draft that's a little bit higher than that Portland pick projects, because there's another area in this draft that I really like, which is 30 to 40. Like I really like that area of this draft. So if we're counting the areas of this draft that I really like, and this pretty much is me telling you I like the whole draft, but 1 and 2, I really like that area of the draft, the top two. I really like 5 to 9. I really like, let's say, 14 to 20. And then I really like 29 to 39. Like these are the areas that I like. And the good thing for the Raptors is they're probably going to get to pick in two of those areas. And the other good thing for the Raptors is they have a great development staff. And we've seen proof of concept year over year now for the last 2 years with Darko that these players do get better. They do develop. You have, and the funny thing is, this shit is building positively. It's building positively. I'm very high on BJ Edgwin. I'm very high, which is why I said 5 to 9. Because I still think there's a chance he goes fifth. Now, yeah. I think on this roster, though, like, yeah. I've been very high on him the entire way through, by the way. I mean, I was really high on him when I watched him this summer with Bahamas. I thought he's awesome. So, Carbon saying, I can see the Raptors trade out of 6th or 7th for one late lottery pick and late first round picks. Would they do that? They might. They could. I think there's like, and the cool thing about this draft is it presents the Raptors with a lot of what they need. You need a young big, Khaman Malawach, Rocco Sikorsky. You got uh, Derek Queen, you got Asa Newell. So there's four there. You need great defenders on the wing. You got plenty of that in this draft too. You need movement shooters potentially. You got plenty of that too. You got, long wings. You got that. You need shifty shot creators. You got a little bit of that too. So, this draft presents a lot of great future archetypes. And again, I keep coming back. Like there's certain players that just kind of hone in, and you're just like, man, that player fits everything the Raptors are really about. Colin Murray Boyles, man. That's what I just keep coming back to, man. CMB, great passer, great defender, super positionally versatile, majorly humble. I've heard so many good things about that dude. So it's just, yeah, I have a feeling. I'm getting that feeling that this is just going to be a Colin Murray Boyles draft for the Raptors. But if it's not, could be a Derek Queen draft. I think those two players are like, yeah, pretty much. I think that Portland pick is going to be either 38, 39, 40, 41, something like that. Portland is on a 5-game losing streak with a .51 strength of schedule. Bad for our first round pick, but good for our second. Yeah, that's the funny thing, with Portland. It's like you really hope they don't clip us, but then you also really, really, really hoping. Unfortunately, the second round does not reslot, and Portland is already way too good. So we're not going to get that. Initially when I walked into this season and I saw how bad the Raptors were about 2 months ago, I was like, there's a real chance. And it's ironic that right around 2 months ago, both picks got so much worse because Portland with Scoot Henderson and Tamani Kamara and everything that's gone right for Portland. Denny Avdia has been friggin' a revelation. They've been so good. Portland is such a fun team to watch. They're great, man. They're so fun. They're just a really fun team to watch. I got to tell you, I'm a fan. I'm a huge fan, right? And by the way, who was saying trade for Scoot Henderson? This guy. When the whole world said sell, I said buy. I am very happy I did not sell my Scoot stock. Scoot stock. That's a bit of a tongue twister there. But yeah, so giving myself a little bit of pat on the back there. What's interesting? Tamani was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the 52nd overall pick. So yeah, the Raptors need to go and find their own Tamani Kamara with that Portland pick this year. And big shout out to Andre Stojakovic, who had 37 points the other day. That was really cool. I wonder if he's a target for the Raptors, but I don't know if he fits. But he's a kid that obviously I've known about and followed for a really, really long time. So it would be really cool. Anyways, I am off to sleep. Shout outs to the sickos, the 230 of you, 220 of you who've been in here the whole time. This is like 134. It's the Raptors versus the Jazz, and y'all are with us rocking at 1:34 a.m. So thank you for that. I am feeling a little bit better. These cough drops have been helping a little bit. Haven't been coughing as much today, so that was good. But yeah, overall, onward and upward with this tank. I don't want everyone to feel too bummed about it. And again, last live, I was a little bit bummed out because the Raptors just did not play their guys. But at least in this game, you got to see positive Scottie performance. You got to see, Jamal Shed close out the game. He got reps there. And you know what? Let the cards fall where they may. Let it fall where it may. And who knows? Maybe the Raptors do move down to eighth and we're all collectively panicking. And what ends up happening? The Raptors get the second overall pick or the first overall pick anyway. I got to tell you, I was watching Cooper Flag on that bench today. I cannot say enough nice things about this guy. I really can't. I really can't. I cannot stop thinking about what a positive, like every box that I want for a prospect, this guy checks it off. Self-creation, humility, team first mentality, level-headed, mature, his body language, the entire game. This entire game, when the camera zoomed in on him a million times because he's Golden Boy right now, he's Captain America, but like every single time he's talking to his teammates and he's on his feet and he's rooting for his teammates, and it's just like, damn, Like, if you told me this guy was a 22-year-old, three-time Naismith Player of the Year, I would so believe you because that's how he carries himself as an 18-year-old reclassified freshman. He's like the most mature dude. And you listen to the interviews and you're like, the only thing I really care about when I'm listening to young players talk is how deeply do you understand your game and how deeply have you scrutinized it and have you shit tested, like who are you around? Like I feel like sometimes that shit comes through in those interviews. I mean, like you can tell if he has a trainer or a parent who's really gassing him up or filling his head in the wrong direction, and you get this like complete, like the work is the work, just going in one direction. And you really just he's an I was thinking of a word, and I think the term is blemishless. He's a blemishless prospect. He's really good, and I think any team that gets him is going to get like 10 wins better next year. And I'm just sitting here, and I'm just like, Lord, I know there's no way to game this system to get Cooper Flag. I know that the math is conclusive. You can at best have thrown this entire season and gotten a 14% chance at it, and even that would be very ambitious. So you leave it to the lottery gods, you pray. But yo, if you're religious out there, I need you to start praying to the C's and the F's, okay? Because the gap between him and number two is like so big. And the gap between him and number three is so massive. Like him versus VJ Edgecombe and Khaman Malawach and these guys, Con Knipple, like the gap is so massive. So this is like a real first overall pick. This is not quite the Paolo draft where it's like it could be Paolo, it could be Chet, could be Jabari. Like we don't know. It's not like that at all. It's not even quite like the Zion draft where it's like it could be Zion, it could be RJ, it could be Ja. Like, I mean, it wasn't gonna be could be shit, because it was gonna be Zion at number one. But at least going into it, it felt like there wasn't that big a gap, and then Zion extended that gap at Duke. But like to me, like this is as clear cut a number one pick since Wemby. And between him and Wemby, like I think it's just obviously I'd take Wemby. I think Wemby's the better prospect, but it's not that far off. Like he's really good. He has a 16.9 box plus minus. To put that into context, I think that's higher than Kevin Durant. Like the only freshman that I can really think of that had like a higher box plus minus than that was probably Zion at about 20. But like that's so much higher than Cade. That's so much higher than Paolo. Like that's just it's in a different planet than those guys. And yeah, like he's great, man. He's so good. So yeah, that could happen, man. We got some super chats. Pepper Jack saying like the stream. Thank you very much. Likes are super underrated and super free. So yes, do like it. You don't have to do what Pepper Jack just did here, where you super chat, but liking is free. So I appreciate that. And Troy Knight saying thank you for the live tonight. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate the reciprocity of all of this. I do want to say, you know, again, I'll try to be funnier about my critical, you know, deep dives into what's going wrong with the Raptors and all that stuff. But I was listening to Run It Back Philly, and he had a really funny. He generally is a lot funnier than I am. So I want to say that sometimes in a tanking season, it helps to have someone who's funny. And I've been working on my sense of humor. I've been working on my sense of humor. I got to tell you, I took the mic several times at Penn Dance and I got a lot of laughs, even though some of those were laughs at my expense, but still they were laughs, So I've been working on getting a little bit funnier and just something he laid out, which I thought was hilarious. Can I show it to you guys? Okay, hang on. I'm going to show it to you. He was talking about the Sixers and I guess I want to show this because I thought it was hilarious. It's such a funny clip about Daryl Morey, and and the reason I wanted to share this is because literally I was talking about Daryl Morey being a nerd the other day, and I I did not expect him to hit it on the head so hard. Hang on one second. Here we go.
they still are not.
You see what I'm saying?
Turns out LLMs do fairly well at prediction. They still are not.
You see what I'm saying? This is not sports. This is just not sports. And this is exactly why Daryl Morey does not have a championship. His algorithms work sometimes. You know, back when he was in charge of the Houston Rockets, he thought he changed the entire landscape of the NBA by going small ball, trading away a rim running center so that he could play 5 out and just have Harden pound the rock and kick it out. He thought if you shoot more threes than the Golden State Warriors, you beat the Golden State Warriors. And then the Houston Rockets missed 27 three-pointers in a row in a Western Conference Finals game because the basketball gods said, fuck you, nerd.
The delivery is so deadpan and so accurate. Fuck you, nerd. I got to tell you, as someone who finished on the honor roll once and got a scholarship to U of T, I've never considered myself a nerd. I was a smart dude who pulled a lot of chicks, okay? And probably having to tell a whole bunch of dudes that I pulled a lot of chicks is probably not very good. But nevertheless, it is true. It is true. However, I have a lot of empathy for smart people. Daryl Morey is not like just a smart person. He actually just he over intellectualizes everything. Anyways, that was funny as hell. Number two, he had a really great take on the bullshit that is the tank. And he said that this is why TV ratings are falling. He said because everybody who's doing this horse and pony show is just frustrating the shit out of everybody. Right? Everybody. Oh, the Raptors make a big comeback down the stretch. Thank God. Like, why? Whoa. None of us are thinking that, right? It's a miracle the Raptors pulled this one out. Oh, it's such a tragedy that Jamal Shed couldn't get that one off on time. And it's just like, how are Raptor fans supposed to react to being so diametrically opposed to the commentators that are calling this game when we all know what's up? We all know the deal, bro. The GM already leaked it. He said we're praying to the lottery gods. You don't pray to the lottery gods and then try to finish outside the lottery. That's stupid. You don't play Scottie Barnes 24 minutes when you're trying to win. So what is this? It's like a horse and pony show. It's like trying to pretend wrestling is real. You know? Is that BI Twitter thing real? What Twitter thing? Please explain. So he said that this is why podcasting is on the rise and YouTube content creators are on the rise is because we can tell the truth. And, you know, the people who are kind of corporate schmucks can't. They can't tell the truth. I mean, is it? Sort of. Entertainer clips saying, Khaman Malawach reminds me of Cat, a guy who in college wasn't able to show off his full offensive repertoire. I think Khaman is more of an offensive ceiling than people think. I think he's going to be great offensively. I think his touch around the basket is fantastic. And I think his shooting potential is great. I don't know about Karl-Anthony Towns. I think you really do need to accept that Karl-Anthony Towns was so much better as a freshman. He was definitively, clearly the number one overall pick. Actually, you know what? Let me not be a revisionist historian. At the time, it was not completely clear that Karl-Anthony Towns should be the number one overall pick. A lot of people felt that Jahlil Okafor at the time were like the number one overall pick. But I do want to say if Karl-Anthony Towns was in this draft, like if that legit cat was in this draft, I think almost definitively he would be the number 2 player in this draft. I think definitively he'd be the number 2. Worst case, number 3. So the fact that Khaman is like 6th, 7th, 8th, depending on who you ask, I think, ooh, I really hate this. And I'll tell you why I hate this. And, you know, and it's because it's number one, Khaman is just so much better than Clint Capella. So much better than Clint Capella. And number two, I think this comparison, whether you want to admit this or not, stems from an aesthetic. You're comparing two people who you probably assume look similar, and I think that that's really lazy. Personally, I'm not trying to come at you. I'm just saying that that's really lazy. I'm not suggesting that Clint Capella couldn't move his feet very well. No, I'm just saying, like, in terms of the body type, the shoulders, the touch, the shooting upside at the same age, like all of that is so decidedly in favor of Khaman being different. And Capella, exactly, like he was a more like a rim running athlete. Like this is not Khaman at all. Does Khaman have a feel for the game where he can stay with guards, if not a waste of a pick? I don't think that would make him a waste of a pick, man. I think he's just got really good instincts. I think he's got great basketball instincts. He has great work ethic, and I think he is a real starting center in the NBA. He's going to block shots. He's going to offensive rebound. He's going to be great. Like he's going to be a sponge, and he fits so well to the Raptors culture already. I think he and Ulrich would be great together. They already have a good relationship. The Raptors obviously have a great relationship between Masai Ujiri and Joe Tuamu. So, again, if Kaman is in that 7 to 8 range and the Raptors in the 7 to 8 range, I think definitely that's another name to monitor in that range that I'm talking about. So yeah, I think the Raptors have a lot of really a lot of great options between 5 and 10. And you're just really hoping that if you're the Raptors, you don't lose out on that player that you really, really wanted at 6th. You know what I mean? Like you're just hoping that that's not it. But there was never any way to game it. And again, when you look at the math really deeply, you can keep trying to like unmathematically state this. You can keep saying like, oh well, if we have the 6th place, it's better than the 5th. And it's just like, well, what if the 6th is the key to the 1st? Like what if that's what ends up being the like no matter how many times I explain this, I'm aware that there's probably somebody out there who just is never going to get it. So, yeah. Huh. Why you got to bring politics into sports? That's lame. Who are you talking to? Calvin Clown. You got to appreciate the self-awareness, wouldn't you say? Hey Rob, when are you planning your big board episode? Good question. I think we did probably after March Madness. I think that would be a fair time. I think there's like 3 waves when you're gonna do it. Number one is after the college season when you've had some time to digest March Madness. I think there's a second wave where you can do it, which is right around the start of the pre-draft workouts, like measurements come out, injury histories, guys go back, drop out, etc. We don't know who's going to drop out, who's going to stay in. There might be some surprises there. I don't think there's going to be too many surprises there, but there could be some surprises there. And then you start to, see the posturing and the work from the agents and they're trying to like, put guys in place. And I think at that point you do another one, right? And then yeah, so let's see, what's the timeline? You do one after the March Madness, then you do one after the lottery, then you do one probably 2 weeks before the draft, and then you do one like 2 days before the draft. So I think that should be around the timeline that we should aim for. And also, luckily for me, I was gifted NBA 2K 2025 this year, so I think it'd be cool to do a rebuild, with the draft picks, with Brandon Ingram, and maybe we'll do one of those videos as well. That could be fun. We need some fun content here. So yeah. pretty much. Maroon Prince saying, I think the underrated aspect of Malawach's game is that he's already found a way to be functional at 7'2". He moves like a 6'11 guy. You can develop him like 90% of 7'2 guys. It's questionable. I think he moves extremely well for a player his size. And I also think that he will get better with his movements. You know, I think that's a really, really good point. I think it's a great point. I think he moves extremely fluidly. I think he runs the court very well. There's nothing hitchy about how he moves. And at 7'2", maybe 7'3", we don't know if he's grown a little bit. We'll see what the measurements look like. With a close to, I think, 7'6", 7'7" wingspan, I mean, you really are talking about, like, if you can clear up that he's not going to have injury history, like a massive, massive injury risk, you know, and I think that's always troubling with 7'2", 7'3" guys. Like, this is the type of guy that projects as, I think he has like 5-time All-Star upside. I really like him a lot. VJ or Suggs, who is the better prospect? I am inclined to say VJ is the better prospect than Jalen Suggs. Just being a lot bigger. I think that matters. He's not a lot bigger, is he? He's about 6'5". That's a good comparison. I think just as an athlete, they're both good athletes. I just think VJ is a slightly better athlete. And I just think VJ has a lot of that Dyson Daniels, you know, event creation stuff defensively. Yeah, they are the same size. What? Am I crazy to say that VJ has a longer wingspan? Like, why does VJ feel like the better athlete? What's 6'4", 6'5", 6'4"? Yeah, I don't know. I think I have questions about VJ playing like full-time guard. I don't necessarily think that's all looked great, but I would like to see more tape of him playing more lead initiation role. But clearly at that size, his value is going to go up a lot if he can play some combo guard for you at the NBA level. Yeah, it's just, he feels like, VJ Edgecombe feels like, you know, as an athlete, when I think about him, I think about Amen Thompson. He feels like that type of athlete. Now, I don't know if it's Amen Thompson quite on that level, but it's I feel like it's comparable. And yeah, like there's athletic dudes, like Ochai's athletic, Scottie's athletic, you know, there's athletic dudes. And then there's like super freak athletes. And I think Amen Thompson and Osar Thompson are examples of freak athletes. I think VJ Edgecombe is a freak athlete. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I just think like next to Scottie, I really like the idea of VJ. I really like the idea of VJ Edgecombe next to Scottie. I think if the jump shot can be somewhat consistent for both those guys, it could be a great pairing. Defensively, it would just be a nightmare, you know. And again, there's so many great defensive prospects at the top of this draft that you really, you know, you think about it. VJ, Khaman, Colin Murray Boyles, Cooper Flag. It's like 4 excellent defenders at this draft. So yeah. All right, guys. I was trying to exit this at 53 minutes. Someone wrote in the comments, at least go an hour. I figured, all right, let's go the hour. So we went an hour and 13. And I will admit, sometimes when the super chats come in, I do feel a little bit of like a pressure to continue a little bit further. So thank you much. Thank you so much for that. I don't know if he'd be the best athlete in the NBA. I don't know if he'd be the best athlete in the NBA. I do want to point out something. Hang on. There's exciting news. So I would like to point out how would you like to watch a game with me in real time? And that's exactly what playback is allowing us to do. So hang on one second. The schedule for me is tomorrow night, Thunder at Pistons at 7 o'clock. I will be on playback. So actually tonight. So 7 o'clock, that's me. Then Wednesday this week, Nuggets at Lakers. Hopefully a healthier game from the Lakers. 10 o'clock, it will be Chill and myself doing that. And that will be right after I whoop Finesse Wes in the Player's Choice PCL. On Friday next week, Rockets at Heat. Me calling a Fred VanVleet game on PC on the main stage. So it'll be Ron, Mars, Chill, Ox, and myself. And let's see here. March 28th, Knicks at Bucks. So me calling an OG Anunoby versus that will be on March 28th. And special treat, March 30th, me and Jordan, so Jordan and myself, calling Wolves, Pistons at Wolves. So that is going to be fun. Yo, not once, but twice. They got me watching Cade. So look, Cade had 38 points yesterday, and they lost to the Wizards. So that was interesting. He shot horribly, but I think overall, I think he had 38 points. Got to the line at will. Cade's cool, man. Cade's gonna win Most Improved Player. He might even be third team All NBA this year. Clearly, if you're one of those people that thinks Cade is better than Scottie, you're having a really, really nice renaissance moment right now. I'm not one of those people, so I'm never going to be one of those people. All right. But yes, you can definitely tune in. It is an app. You download it, Playback. Playback is awesome. It's a really, really cool app. And, there's a live chat function, and it's just like YouTube, a little bit like YouTube. But, if you have League Pass, if you don't have League Pass, you can always ask for a League Pass gift, or you can always watch on your television or use one of those streaming sites or whatever. But you get, live banter and hopefully some very interesting conversations during the game. So I don't know. I think a lot of these apps are designed to make us probably feel a little less alone. Like I used to remember a time when after my mom passed away, I would put on Friends, and it made me feel like there was somebody around. And now I will sometimes put on Player's Choice, and it feels like my friends are having a conversation in the back. And sometimes I'll hear something and I'll even scream at the friggin' screen and be like, "What are you guys talking about? That's fucking crazy." And I think it just sort of helps to facilitate that, you know? Oh, there we go. Rob on PC, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. Yeah, so it's not on PC, it's on Playback via PC. So you go to Playback, download Playback, go to the Player's Choice room, and then I will be there on the stage. And hopefully, if I'm funny, entertaining, or dope, insightful, then you'll see little posted clips of me, floating around the internet, as there are many on TikTok and X and Instagram floating around via PC. But I have not included what will be my panel schedule for the next couple of weeks, and I expect that will continue. There will also be, holy shit, I just realized this, on the, I think, 18th, I have my PCL debate, and I will be debating 3 topics. So yeah, so I will be on a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna be on a lot. Yeah. It's the PC channel on Playback. It's super good and a ton of fun. Exactly. Yeah. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a great one. Peace.